Time for Entre Nous. On the show today, we're focusing on drug consumption here in France. A study released earlier this year shows cocaine use doubled in this country in 2023. France has the seventh highest consumption of cocaine in Europe and ranks high in cannabis use as well. But that trend could be going down amongst the very young. Regarding cannabis, the government shows no signs it's willing to legalize pot. According to French authorities, drug crime is crippling daily life here in France. To talk more about all this, we can speak with Marie Jauffret-Roustide, sociologist at the National Institute of Health and Medical Research and member of the European Union Drugs Agency Scientific Committee. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us here on France 24. Now, when it comes to the legalization of cannabis, if the government here in France went ahead and did that, wouldn't that effect take on the black market and essentially legalize the process?
Yes, but in France, we have a problem with drugs because politicians have a very, very moral perspective on drug use compared to other European countries that have more a public health approach. And that's why the topic of legalization is a taboo in France, even if we know that around us, more and more European countries have chosen cannabis legalization. Recently, that's the case for Switzerland, the Netherlands, Germany, and other countries. And we have also the same process in North America with the United States and Canada.
I mean, even Thailand, a country that was so strict when it came to drugs use, now you can smoke a weed in Bangkok. What is the government's rationale for taking this moralistic approach, as you say?
The French position, it's a long history because the French law regarding drug use have been taken around May 68 student protest, and the politicians at this time thought that controlling drug and punishing drug people was a way to control student protests. So that's why it has influenced the way French politicians think about drugs. And the other problem that we have in France is in France that's very difficult compared to other countries to take political decisions based on evidence-based, so on science. So the moral views are more important than scientific views, and that's really a problem.
Because aren't there ways to do it correctly? Not necessarily the Amsterdam route, because we see the problems with tourism, the problems with tourism that local authorities are facing with people who are just going to the coffee shops and making a mess of themselves on the street. But isn't there a way to sort of make it more controlled to see who is buying the marijuana?
You are totally right. The Netherlands example is a counter example, but in the Netherlands, it was a depenalization of use, but with no legalization. And now the Netherlands have chosen to choose the option of legalization to avoid all these problems. So now we have when we speak about legalization, we have several models. We have these United States model that is with a lot of concurrence and that is associated with increase of cannabis use and a lot of health problems. But we have also the model from Quebec in Canada that is very interesting because that's a state model where all the money from the legal cannabis is reinvested in prevention and care. And that's a model that has very interesting results because they have, since after the legalization, they have seen that among the youngest people, they have a decrease in cannabis use. And the legalization in Quebec is only allowed for people who are over 21 years.
Marie, very briefly, you told me that there was a trend amongst the very young in this country not to smoke cannabis. What are you seeing?
So it's very recent data. So before in France, we have one of the highest rate of cannabis use among young people, and now it has decreased a lot. And it's linked to the policies that France has taken according to tobacco, because in France, cannabis is used with tobacco, and we have in France a very interesting model of controlling tobacco without without prohibition and associated with a lot of prevention. And the fact that tobacco has decreased a lot in France, it has had an impact on the cannabis use too. And the second reason is linked to COVID-19 pandemic. And now we have more and more young people who are more at home. They have less sociability outside. And the fact that they are more at home and playing with video games and their phones, they have less contact with others, and it has also an impact.
That's not a good thing either.
On cannabis use. So that's not a good thing because we have also an increase in mental health problems among young people.
I want to talk about cocaine if we can, because cocaine consumption is soaring in this country. What are the factors that has contributed to this?
So the first factor is the availability. So the price of cocaine has decreased a lot. There is a large availability of cocaine in France. So that's the first reason, with very low prices. The second reason is that it's a stimulant. And now in France, we are in a capitalist country and we have more and more pressure to work more. And cocaine is also a way for some people to adapt them with this pressure at work, for example.
So, but I'm just curious, who is consuming this cocaine? And is this consumption happening in French cities like here in Paris or in small towns as well?
No, in small town as well. So there is a major change in the profiles of people who use cocaine according to the lower prices. So now we have data that cocaine is used among all ages, all social classes, and all territories in France.
I want to ask, Donald Trump, the U.S. president, wants to crack down on the use of fentanyl in the United States. Are we seeing that problem here in France, or is that purely an American problem?
It's not only an American problem, because they have the same problem in Canada too. And in the north of Europe, it's also begin this opioid crisis. But in France, hopefully, until now, we have the impression to be protected, and one of the reasons is that the French FDA is controlling the opioid access in France. It was not the case in the US, and the fentanyl crisis began in the United States with a prescription, and in France the prescriptions are really controlled.
I want to talk about the fight between authorities to crack down on the drug illegal sale of drugs here in France. Why is the situation so bad, according to French authorities, that the investigating judges need police protection even?
Yeah, that's really a problem. So that's a sign that prohibition doesn't work. And even The Lancet, a very famous journal, recently published a paper saying that we need to change our policies and prohibition doesn't work, and that we need to have more harm reduction policies, and legalization is one of these harm reduction framework. So it's a very complex problem. So
it seems that it's counterproductive to spend so much resources. For example, when you think of cannabis use, for instance, when you can just take a 3-hour train ride to Amsterdam and smoke a joint over there quite legally and purchase weed as well.
And now it will be also the case in Germany, in Switzerland, so all around us. So what we know is that spending too much money in repression doesn't work, and that we need to invest more this money in prevention, and that's probably one of the best solutions to do.
And just very briefly, the young kids now, you said they're not using cannabis.
They are less using.
They're using cannabis a lot less, but and now they're playing video games, according to you. But are they using any other drugs, or are they clean? Because they're also drinking a lot less, from what I understand.
Yes, they are drinking a lot less. They are also smoking less, but they are also using the electronic cigarette vaping.
Which is not good either, yeah.
So, and there is also these dependencies to screens and also all these mental health issues.
Marie Jauffret-Roustide, thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us on the program today. And that's it for this edition of Entre Nous.
Welcome to the densest neighborhood in Paris, and in fact, the densest urban district in all of Europe, the little-known 11th arrondissement.
Located in the northeastern part of the capital, the 11th is a little bit off the typical tourist track, but a definite favorite with the locals.
And that's because the 11th arrondissement is undoubtedly one of the coolest parts of town, full of trendy cafes and wine bars, a dynamic food scene, and a wild nightlife.
The 11th has been a magnet for revelers for centuries and a hotbed of revolutionary history.
Edgy and vibrant, the 11th is full of authentic Parisian energy, and we'll check it out in the next French Connections.
French Connections Plus, presented by Jeannie Godula and Florence Villemino.